Hello, everyone, and welcome to OurVentura TV. I'm Sandra Siepak. On today's show, we're welcoming Denise Wise. She is the CEO of the Housing Authority of the City of San Buenaventura. Thank you so much, Denise, for joining us today.
My pleasure, and I appreciate the invitation. Thank you.
Very good. Please give us more information on what you and your team do at the Housing Authority for so many of us here in Ventura.
Well, I think people think a housing authority is basically public housing in Section 8.
Right.
And that's true. However, I look at us as being very, very different. We're very progressive. Not only do we have public housing and Section 8 vouchers, we also develop. We have close to about 1,100 units in our portfolio right now. We also property manage those units. I'll highlight three recent developments. One, it's called Willett Ranch, and it's up at the top of just about across the street from the schoolhouse on the avenue. Mm-hmm. It is a 50-unit senior apartments. That means 62 or over. And what we did is we set aside 15 units for unhoused seniors, and they filled up very quickly. And I think that just an important note here: the growing population of homeless are in with our seniors. We also finished on the avenue. The name of the property is El Portal. It was previously I would say, a problem property, but what we did is we basically gutted it, and it's now a permanent supportive housing. And it has really contributed to the health and safety at that end of the avenue, because we also manage it. And then the last one, the one that we're doing right now, is Westview 3, Phase 3. For those who may not know, or for those who do, Westview is the first public housing development in the city of Ventura, and it went into service in 1952, and the other phase went into service in 1960. So what we've done is we've demolished those and have developed new buildings, if you will. And the one that we're leasing up right now is Westview 3. It's 105 units, and we have set aside 21 units for unhoused families.
Okay.
That is it's a population that we feel that we're not the silver bullet, but we do feel an obligation as we are developing our properties to really set aside units for a homeless population. As a matter of fact, Westview 2 will be 50 units, and we're setting aside 5 units of those 50 for homeless. So as we develop our properties, we really take a look at the point in time count and see which, if you will, populations are needing housing. So that's
right. And at this point in time, homelessness is a big concern for all of us. What does fully addressing the homeless look like, though, to the Housing Authority?
To us, it is, as I said, we're not the silver bullet, so it's a community-wide effort as far as addressing the issue of homelessness. I do believe decent, safe, and sanitary housing is a human right.
Yes.
That we have the moral obligation, if you will, to ensure that there is housing available, and we're doing a portion or a sector of that, so that we can start working with the population and starting to move people into housing. It takes a wide variety of partners. We've worked with HSA, Human Services Agency, Behavioral Health, Tri-Counties, Mercy Housing. So it's a really large partnership endeavor, so that whomever we're housing that's been previously homeless has the opportunity to be successful.
And homelessness can happen to some who have fallen on hard times, but some may also ask, is poverty connected to homelessness? Is there a link there? So do you believe, does poverty cause the homeless issue, or are there other factors involved here?
I think poverty is the outcome. I don't think it's the start, frankly. And it has to do with the economy.
Yes.
Housing costs have outpaced wages. That's the core of what we're talking about. So our housing costs have far outpaced our wages.
Mhm.
And just in the city of Ventura, you know, a 2-bedroom apartment can go for up to $2,900
Right.
a month. That's a rental. And that for someone who is on, if you will, minimum wage, which is what, $15, $17?
Right.
They're not going to be able to live, if you will, in any sort of safe way if they were to put all their funds into, they wouldn't even be able to do it. So that's where we find people who are living in a room with other families around. I mean, it doubling up, living in garages, living in their cars. I mean, when we work with the homeless families and a homeless population, there's a myriad of places they live, none of them acceptable. None of them. We recently housed a family of 5. They were living in a house, but in a room.
Okay.
And they were paying $600 a month. And they had a shelf in the refrigerator.
Wow.
And there was only 2 bathrooms. So those are the conditions in order to afford to live here that, you know, we're finding families, and not just families, but households living in unacceptable.
And that really is the concern, is the housing isn't there. And what is the key to solving homelessness? Is it more housing? Is it different types of housing? Will there be enough housing, especially here in Ventura County, which is a very popular place to live?
So you're right. The only way you solve homelessness, to your question, is with housing.
Okay.
You can have a myriad of supportive services, but unless the person has a place to live, it's like teaching someone to be a mechanic, an auto mechanic, but they don't have the car to work on.
Okay.
So what will solve it is housing. Now we have to get creative. And we also have to understand that there's a faction in Ventura that believes that development, whether it's affordable housing, what we do, or any other kind of housing, that they don't want that growth. It's veiled in several other ways, but the bottom line is there's no growth. We also have folks who are, this is great, but the NIMBYism. And so it's a balance of the community. I'm not saying they're wrong, and we're right. It's balancing the community so that we have what I consider to be a continuum of housing. So we do have housing for lower income, and we do have for middle income and upper income. And right now, a lot of the apartments that are being built are for upper income, quite a bit actually. But we need to have this continuum of housing so that as wages increase, the folks who may be in our housing can move up into another, you know, another type of housing, so that now we can move other families. You know, our wait list is amazing, which is amazing from the perspective, it's like 12,000. So that tells you that's one way of gauging need, but the way to solve it is actually through building housing and being creative how we do it.
Okay. And hopefully that can happen, because it's become a crisis mode right now.
We're definitely.
Yeah. So this is something that has to be addressed very quickly in order to accommodate many of these people who, as you said, are living in their cars, are living in a 1-room place, a family. So these are very, very concerning to a lot of people. How does social determinants of health affects homelessness? How does this affect homelessness?
Well, it's social determinants. Social determinants of health is sort of a new way, and not new, but it's a newer way of looking at homelessness from the perspective of where you're living. That's going to affect you physically and mentally. And if you're in an environment that's not safe, if you're in an environment that's temporary, that you don't know where you're going to be tomorrow night, or maybe you've got this week down, but you don't know what you're going to be doing next week, it has a real detrimental effect on your health and also your mental acuity, perhaps.
Right.
So with that said, that's looking at the whole person. That's not just looking at, okay, let's put a roof over the head. That's really looking at the whole person or the whole household. Think of a household, and we have this. Think of a household with children who don't know where they're going. And what happens is we start working with folks or households that have been affected by trauma.
Mhm.
Perhaps that trauma may not be physical. Perhaps that trauma is, I don't know where I'm going to be next week. And it creates trauma, it creates a trauma, if you will, mindset, because where am I going to go? So
That's
with that,
true.
social determinants of health is really the big picture, is really taking a look at all elements. Housing, number one, is it healthy? Is it safe? Do I have access to healthcare? That's the other part of this too. What kind of access do I have to healthcare, to education? And those are the things that we look at as far as the big picture.
Yes, very good. Well,
Okay.
thank you so very much. Denise Wise, CEO of the Housing Authority of San Buenaventura.